Hi, welcome back to another episode of Fit Mommy Nation TV. I have a confession. I was nervous about today's episode because today's guest is a powerhouse of a mom. I mean, I have been following her and her work and story for some time now, but I just did not have the courage to reach out. And most recently, I discovered that we actually went to the same secondary school at almost the same time. Now, that was my biggest impetus to sending an invitation to her and asking her to hop on as a guest. Because once a Cedarian, always a Cedarian. How can I miss out on chatting with a fellow Cedarian, right? So yes, I got to sit down to have a chat with Claire Jedrek today. Claire is a powerhouse of a mom because she is Singapore's first female motor race driver. She's a media personality and influencer with an authentic voice of her own, and she is mom to 2 kids below 5. Coming from an extreme sports background, Claire knows no fear. She used to do aggressive inline skating during her teenage days, which is where she got talent scouted and subsequently grew her career in entertainment. She has done heaps of hosting, graced countless magazine covers, done her fair share of TV dramas, and later on race commentary, which is where she got into motorsports. Life isn't always smooth sailing for Claire, and she has had her own struggles too. Like moving to Singapore alone at the age of 13 and experiencing burnout, just before she first got pregnant. In this conversation, she shared how these experiences turn out to be important in getting her to learn about self-management today, especially right now, when she has to manage her time and energy between 2 toddlers and everything else. We talked about mental wellness, the importance of postpartum recovery, physical activity as her form of meditation, and how she has to learn to make informed choices between motherhood and personal work. I am very excited for today's episode. I hope you get some gold nuggets out of her authentic stories and experiences too. So let's get on with the chat. Hello. Good morning, Claire.
Hi, hello. How are you?
Thanks for taking time to join us on this episode. Everybody, this is Claire. If you have been an active person or you're very involved in sports in Singapore, you probably would already have known Claire. And if you follow a lot of mommy influencers when you're pregnant or whatsoever, you probably would have seen Claire as well. She's everywhere on Hagen, everywhere on lots of other baby stuff. But yeah, I thought Claire will be the best person to introduce herself and just share with everybody what you do, who you are, and then we'll take it from there.
Thank you, Karine. Well, it's really weird when you say mommy influencer. That's something I wouldn't have added to the list 5 or 10 years ago. It's me.
I know. Yes.
I'm a child with children, I tell people. So it's a weird thing. But yeah, I guess I've been in the media for almost 20 years now. Right now, I have my own company with my husband called The Film Dispensary. We do media marketing, and originally, because we both come from motorsport backgrounds, from the racing industry, we actually flipped our company last year because we haven't been able to go racing obviously for the last 2 years unless we move country. And prior to that, I had my own career doing TV presenting, doing emceeing, writing as per such. So I've really just kind of transferred that skill knowledge over to the media marketing arm.
Right.
So it's me and my husband, Alan Wu, who you might see on Channel 8 quite a lot, or there's lots of things that he's been doing. And then we have a film and video guy called Mitch. So that's taking up a lot of our time right now. We actually work solely, majority of our time in robotics and artificial intelligence, which is super cool because we're really looking forward to the whole green city solution. And having an autonomous city, and Singapore is way up there. In fact, the top 2 or 3 in the world when it comes to digitalization. So it's a really cool, I suppose, space to be in right now.
Yes, for sure. And we were just chatting a little bit earlier on, even in schools now at primary school level, there's really an increase in exposure in terms of robotics and doing coding and stuff like that. Introducing these things to the kids, right? So I'm pretty sure you would have been involved, or possibly down the road be involved as well with, exposing these things to kids as well?
Yeah, well, from what I know, with the robotics, it's been a steep learning curve for me, obviously, but it's been quite interesting because with electrics, robotic, and having like ECUs and information to process and stuff. Me and my husband last year had a company which we actually started in 2015 called the Karting Arena, and it was an electric go-kart circuit,
Right.
that was situated in Bukit, and we sold that last year during the COVID period, which was awesome, because we really want to do something after 5 years, something else.
Yes.
And the move to the robotics is actually, it seems kind of like it's on the other end of the spectrum, but really it's quite the same because it's electric, and it's just going down the same path as well. And I think the interesting part for us, now that I am very aligned a year later with robotics and artificial intelligence, is that it really starts from things like Lego. So kids playing with Lego, those are like the real basic building blocks of like robotics. And
can I send my son to intern with you or something?
How's your son?
Lego. P5 now, so 11 this year.
Oh, 11, yeah, I'm a bit of a late
11.
starter. We're the same age, but I had kids like when I was 36. So it took me a while to like go like, yeah, okay, I'm going to do this now. But yeah, I mean, like my kids just started, so yeah, I mean, getting kids started at this age, it's interesting. It's really cool that Singapore and the school system here has already integrated it, because they already foresee that this is the way of the world. I mean, when we talk about like job scopes with kids, the job scopes that we knew as kids is very different from what it is today. And I think just having that creativity and that basic knowledge, now that it's like almost going to be integrated like a chemistry, physics, English, history. It's something which is I will foresee being basic knowledge.
Yeah,
but also
yeah, I do certainly wish that we will go on this path. I mean, towards the end of the chat, I'll throw you a bomb to answer. That'll be a fun one. But yeah, I really do think that it's not going to be easy, like moving away from the standard things that we know in education.
Yeah.
Or we can use as benchmarks. But yeah, I certainly hope that there will be a way to integrate all these things in.
Well, I just had a chat with my dad actually yesterday about that, just talking about how the benchmark of education and having time out is really different. When I first came to Singapore, education was high here than UK, so I had lots of tuition to make up for the fact. But nowadays, because our job roles are changing, and it's almost like we've gone backwards. I was also reading an article about in China how where instead of us piling on all the information for kids to chase up, even if they have that information, most of the kids are not getting the jobs that they want or they're even interested in. So it's actually a waste of time a little bit. I won't say a waste of time, but it's maybe it's good to kind of let off the pedal a bit, because we're just creating this like stress and mental health, which is a big topic nowadays.
I saw on Instagram this the organization that's promoting mental wellness.
Yeah, that's
and
right.
you were advocating for it.
Safe Circle,
yeah. So that's an interesting one.
Just for people to be more open about trauma. So it's about trauma, and I think people, when they think trauma, it can be something like they think PTSD, or they think it's someone dying or something really tragic happened, but it can be something really, really small. For me, in my case, I can think of like 5 things that were probably traumatic to me as a kid, and probably number 1 on the list was moving countries, and I didn't have my parents there all the time, and that was something that kind of actually led to lots of small little issues that can grow into big issues that I managed to overcome. But not everybody has that power, or maybe has that thought process to be able to lead their way into that thought process. So trauma can really happen in lots of ways, and it's just really for people to
when you say earlier, like you managed to overcome, when you say overcome, how long effectively did you take to overcome it, in your opinion?
Well, I mean, I think now that I'm older, I'm 38, I think these are small issues that even led to relationships that I had with people, not just family, but to ex-boyfriends and stuff. It's like baggage. So I mean, now that I'm married and and it's not because I'm married that it solved it, but I've had time to reflect. I've had time to look back on past relationships, and and it's not abandonment. That wasn't that. It's just that my parents were packing up and they needed time to tie loose ends up before they came to Singapore. But I didn't know that I had to like leave my dad there, and my dad would come later. My mom would fly back, and I wouldn't see them for a long period of time. And I was living in a new place, you know, with people, with my family, and I had a younger sister, and we were separated for a period of time. It's tough. Yeah, to be ripped out of the condition. I mean, we're talking 20 years.
Yes.
You know, it's not a short time period. It's just yeah, it was small things. I don't like saying goodbye to airports, and you know, and
right.
you know, I don't like, I just don't see people off at airports. And I'm good now because I'm always flying. I don't like my job for the last 10 years, I was constantly out of the country for 2 weeks. So I'm always telling them, it's fine, I can go myself, I'll just leave myself, it's fine, you know. But also, yeah, you learn to let go and not create these things in your head, you know, after a period of time. And I guess using tools around me, to get over them.
Yeah, absolutely. And also it's also a case of awareness, right? And that's why they have this movement going on, because you don't know what you don't know. And if you don't hear about it, you don't know that you actually might have a problem that you need help in.
Like, you know, the Me Too movement and stuff. I'm not really somebody who really talks about politics or talks too deep into these things, because I'm just kind of person that goes, it happened, whatever, you know what I mean? But not everyone's like me. You know, not everyone's like me, where it's like, you know, back in the day, if a guy touched me in a club, I'd be like, whatever, buy me drinks for all me and my friends. You know, that's like how person I am. I'm like, and then I'll forget about it. But actually, I look back on my career. I've been molested. I've been, and I've just never thought about it. But when I sat down, I was like, wow, I've been molested. I've been sexually harassed. I've had a boss at 16 years old who was way too touchy. But at that age, you don't know how to respond. And I was too embarrassed. And I've had this conversation with my parents about it. And I said, you know, all the things that nobody tells you how to deal with, unless you have a ball busting personality of like shouting out at someone or being aggressive, I wasn't really equipped to deal with that. And, you know, trying to understand why somebody doesn't say anything at the beginning if they've been sexually harassed, and they let it go on, and then you think, oh, it's too long, and then you feel guilty. I mean, I've managed to deal with things in my own way, but I have put in perspective to my parents and to my husband, saying, if it happened to my daughter, forget about me, what's happened to me. If it happened to my daughter, what would I want her to do? You know, and how will I equip her? I've put it in now, if it was to happen to somebody else, how would I want her to respond? And as a parent, how can I teach her how to respond or speak up, going, hey, that's not cool, boss, don't touch my hand, and call them out.
Yes, you know? Absolutely. So that's why my next question for you, and you answered it. Because we things happen to us when we were younger, and we don't know the better. We don't know any better, right? And we just let it pass. But now that we have girls, I mean, I have a girl as well. Then you think about these things and like, no, that's not cool if it happens to my girl, right? And we want them to be able to handle it in a safe way, and how to stand for themselves.
Well, exactly, you know, and be able to be open, going like, I don't know why I didn't tell my parents. I think because it was my first proper job at S Pizza, and I remember at Holland V, and I remember meeting the guy like years later, maybe 8 to 10 years later in a club.
Right.
When I was older and I was clubbing, and I was like, that's the dude. Like I remember him, like, you know, but I was 16 or 17 at that time, and I just thought it was weird. He just, you know, the way he looked to me, it just made me feel really uncomfortable, and things would stay and just linger a bit too long, the touch. And I just thought, but I thought to myself, I was like, do I carry on this job? Do I leave? Do I say something? Do I tell? What do I do? And, you know, I just, I've grown up with the mentality of when work gets tough, because my parents said at 16, I have to go out and work, because they did. And I just didn't have that mentality to want to fail. So I just went, whatever, try to carry out my job, and ignored it.
And also perhaps, I mean, our parents at that time, for the generation, they probably didn't think too deep about such stuff because they themselves weren't exposed
Yeah, I guess
or didn't have such experience.
I think my mom did. I mean, not in the sense of like sexual harassment or stuff, but I mean, she had a lot of racist comments growing up, a lot apart. Well, most of it, from the age of 18 to about 30 something. I mean, people would tell her to go back to China, and she's like, I'm not from China, I'm from Singapore, you know. And it was that the 70s was that whole Yoko Ono, John Lennon time where, you know, they saw a mixed couple. And people would be like, oh, what's going on, you know? And especially where my dad came from, like his where he grew up from, it wasn't commonplace,
right?
You know, to have that, I guess, mixed marriage. And the marriage so young, 21, so young. And my mom, she has quite a ballsy character to stand up for people. I mean, she's a little bit of a tiger lady, so she's great, but they're so hardy. They didn't think anything about it. They don't say anything's traumatic to them. They just get on with life, which I also respect, because if you don't do that, then, you know, but also their trauma can also lead on to our trauma. It's a vicious cycle. So what they don't recognize, like the anxiety that my mom has nowadays and things about security and doing things, it actually passes on
right?
to us.
Yes.
I recognize it as an issue. She doesn't. But I mean, yeah, that's life. Yeah.
I know. Gosh, so much to talk about. From our parents to us being moms now, and then the kids.
Yes.
Well, but you have so much on your plate now. You have 2 little ones, 2 under 5. And then you have like this new project that you're doing with Yui. And then like before that, you had the karting arena. And then you're like the only female motorsport racer in Singapore.
That's right. I'm not sure. Well, it's been 2 years. I'm not sure if there's anyone else.
Someone popped up. No, they can't race, so they're not counted. Yeah. So I don't know. How do you manage it all?
I still struggle. I mean, I have random conversations with my husband where I feel like, you know, even with my work, I say, man, I feel like my work is slipping. I don't feel motivated. I don't feel like I have enough time to do something, or I feel like my time's just too split. You know, I mean, I had the conversation the other day where I feel like I need to achieve something more. It's like, should I go back to study? Should I go and do my master's in something? You know, blah, blah, blah. And actually the reality is, trying to look from outside of myself, is that I've got to realize at this period of time, if I want to be that parent who wants to be that center point of time, it's not sacrifice. I never use the word sacrifice. It's just a natural movement of life. I've got to think that for the next, until at least they're 5 or 6, at this point in life, that what do I want to focus on? And I can't do everything, because I will stretch. I can do it, but I will stretch myself thin. And I think I've had a burnout before, 2017, before I had my first kid.
Right.
Which I had some crazy symptoms. As a person who's like high impact, full of adrenaline junkie, it's weird when it happens, but it's also made me very empathetic to people who suffer longer term. And I don't want to stretch myself thin. I don't want to dilute too much.
So what did it look like when you experienced burnout?
Well, one day I just kind of, I had this ice burning in my chest. And then I basically started having like heart palpitations, or I'd be overseas in a job. Like this one time I was hired for a job overseas, and I went to Wimbledon, and I was at the airport Guardian, and I basically picked up something like some cream for my mom. And then I noticed my heart rate started going up. Also a problem looking at your heart rate on your watch.
Right.
And suddenly it spiked and it went crazy. It was like, and I just kind of froze, and I was like, what's going on? And what happens, it's happened a few times. My fingers go blue. I feel cold. My heart's like palpitating. And somebody said to me at the counter, this Russian lady, she's like, are you having a panic attack? And I was like, no. Anyway, so cut it short, I had it a few times. I thought I was having like heart problems, a heart attack, went to see 3 heart doctors. I've called the ambulance twice. I thought I was getting faint when it happened. I even one time I started feeling pain up here and stuff. And it was just like, while it was happening, I thought I was about to die. I was about to pass out. I actually said my goodbyes. I was so scared. And then I started having breathing difficulties randomly. I was sleeping 5 or 6 hours, and I've always done that since I was a kid. That's who I am.
Yes.
And after the third time, doctor, he's like, I think you're having panic attacks or symptoms. You're not necessarily panicking about anything,
Mm-hmm.
but it's triggering the endorphins and adrenaline, the flight or fight, which I never understood. I never understood people. I was like, people who panic.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, drink some concrete. But then I didn't know what happened, and one day it spiraled where basically for 2 weeks I was afraid to be alone. I was afraid to go to the gym. I was afraid to go into like my hot pool because I thought I'd have a heart attack and die by myself. And I started developing this weird thought that I would be alone and die by myself. So my husband would go to work, and then I would suddenly panic, and then I'd be like, oh my god, I think something's happened to me. And it was so weird. And then I would work in my condo lobby just in case nobody would find me.
Right.
I couldn't get out of bed one day. It was so weird. Weirdest things happen, and I just kind of like.
So this kind of like went on for a period of time in like
It went on for
2017?
like. It was probably about a 2 or 3 months until I really did something with the breathing.
Right.
It all just kind of culminated, and we have this relationship between me and my husband where it's very hard love. It's like, come on, blah blah. And even though he didn't understand what was going on, because you can't really describe what's going on to somebody who doesn't have these things. It's like having asthma. If you don't have it, you don't understand what it feels like. He just thought maybe it's like hormones or period. I don't know, but these weird things. And he'd come straight home, and he never said anything whether he was concerned or not. But he would always say, if I didn't feel like moving from the couch, he'd be like, come on, let's get out. Let's walk down the road.
Snap out of it kind of thing, right?
Yeah, he would move me out of the situation of headspace. To get me out of that. Anyway, the doctor basically said I had a burnout, and I was not sleeping enough. And he says, you're in your 30s, you're female. And I was like, don't you put me in that category. What does that mean? And actually the fact is, it's true. You can't spend 20 years of your life sleeping 5 or 6 hours. I was saying yes to every single job. And because I fly in and fly out so often, I'd get home at midnight, take a job at 7 a.m., like hosting or something.
Oh gosh.
I just wouldn't have enough sleep.
It's the body's message to you to slow down.
And my doctor basically, because I said, but it feels real. He said, because it is real to you. And it is real. The symptoms are real. Your body is tired.
Yes.
And you just need to slow down. You just need to take it back a couple of notches and reset. And I think even though it was upsetting when it happened, and I actually went on medication, that what I took from it was actually, maybe it was a good thing. My husband's like, maybe this is a good thing for you, because now you know what it feels like. You can now control it.
Yes. And kind of like raise your level of awareness. Then you know that this is the threshold that you want to work with or work within, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I had all sorts of small symptoms. Like when I'm really stressed, my breathing gets labored. I get very like
shallow breathing.
Yeah. And then I'd have facial tics where I'm constantly doing this. Like I would blink a lot.
Right.
When I'm in a stressful situation. It's because I was just taking so much on and I was tired. And I didn't know. I was like, why am I getting this? Why am I blinking so hard? And like I feel stress behind here. And these are actually all telltale signs.
Yes.
And that's why now if I do start getting a little bit like of things that I notice as signs, I pull back. And I say no, and I say no to everything. I take time out and go read a book.
And that's why it's important. Now you have a heightened level of body awareness.
Yeah, and I would have never known if it didn't happen to me. I'm just a lot smarter now.
Yeah, absolutely. Interesting, because that happened in about 20, you like mentioned 2017, and not long after you had Ollie.
That's right. So it happened somewhere like, it would have been 6-7 months before I had Ollie.
Oh,
so I was a bit stressed because before I decided to try and get pregnant. Sorry. So a year before, and I was just upset it was happening to me, because I was like, how am I going to be a good mother? And this, but I mean, I think it was actually for me meant to happen the way it was, because now I know I'm in a place where I can pull back because I have kids now. And for me, the whole process of like racing has been about letting go of ego. And very much about not being in denial and knowing your feedback as such. And now that I have kids again, wanting to do things, achieve things, especially playing sport and keeping fit and stuff, the ego tends to always come back again. And with each kid, you
I
think,
know.
oh, okay, I survived that one. I can do this and this and this, and I could probably stretch it a little bit more here. But actually, that's just ego speaking. And for me, when I spoke earlier about wanting to achieve something more, I'm like, I need to be realistic. I'm already tired with 5 things. What makes me think I could have like another
6 and 7
thing?
things.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yes, I know. I mean, I can only imagine it must have been hard for you as well, because before that you had always been involved in, like, I don't know, extreme sports.
Yeah.
Because before that you were doing like inline as well, right? When you were younger.
Yeah, I
And
did that
then
basically for almost like 10 years, which is kind of crazy.
everything, right? Like then after that, going to motorsports and all these things, and then being racist. I mean, these are all, it takes up a lot of your energy levels, focus, and
Yes.
to want to perform, and plus also your involvement in so-called the fitness industry, being involved, right? And all that. So my question is, how do you manage that, reconcile with that? Because that's who you recognize as yourself, or people
Yes.
also recognize you as. And then how do you reconcile it with, motherhood? Because it's different, absolutely different. Or like I would say there needs to be a change in mindset.
Yep.
Right. So I'm just interested to know the reconciliation part.
So what between like the sport and
Yeah, I'm
um,
like this, I do this, we go out and exercise, and I can hit this, and I can achieve this. And like, but once you become a mother, like, there are other things to consider about now.
yeah, well, that's why I never really say it's sacrifice, because I don't feel like I'm sacrificing any things. I mean, there's always going to be moments where I like, I guess the payoff is like, if I do this, I can't have this, but I also have to ask myself, do I really want that? You know what I mean? I ask
Mm-hmm.
deep questions like, do I really want to do that? I mean, I've always known myself to take up competitive sport because I've always just like my training goal and stuff, and done things like triathlons or bike competitions. I've always had this long-term goal. And it's funny how some perspectives change. And I've had like real talks myself. And even though I'm not racing right now, I ask myself now, like, do I want to go back to it? Because there was a lot of time I spent overseas. Is it just ego? What is it? I mean, I had like 5 great years out of that. What do I want out of it? Strategically, I always think about to myself like my I guess image and marketing and reinventing. I'm in the media, so maybe it's time for me to do something else. And being in robotics now, I see this as another passage of way of a reinvention of just a change in life,
Right.
and knowledge and education. But it's very hard when you think about achievements. I spent my life always looking at blocks of achievements, and for me, I know myself, my backbone has always been sport. And not because it's sport competitive, but it's like meditation to me. So I need that time out to be with myself. I don't look at my phone. I have my goals and I enjoy that, and that's full stop.
Yeah.
That's something which I know is me.
Yeah.
Everything else after that, I mean, I have my work and such with the kids is, I guess I kind of put a 1 to 10 scale of like, how much do I really want it? If I really want to do it, then there is no really real excuses. I will find a way to do it.
Yes.
For me, it's very simple. It's like, if I really wanted to go and train more, then I wouldn't use my phone for like an hour. I mean, a lot of my work that I do is marketing media, so I am on social media.
On the phone all the time.
Yeah, exactly. Posting, blah, blah. But I think what I try and do now is be smart. I try and crunch all the work that I need to do.
Right.
I preload it. I do all the stuff that I need to. I set like time limits on my phone if I spent too much long on there. How to hold off on that. And those are like my goals and my limits, and then I guess for the kids, it is what it is. I know how much time I want to spend with them. And then I work around it. It's tough. I'm constantly re-evaluating the time and goals that I want to spend with them. I know that I want to be there to teach them some things. And the other times I think about really, well, it's no point I do work or I do my training and then I'm still thinking about my kids. It's either it's best to be 100% while I'm there at work doing it, and then 100% with the kids.
Yes.
And I think that's just the best way. It's just no point me being half like, thinking, I want to go see the kids halfway through. What's the point? I'm not even there.
Mm.
And just reevaluating life that way. Yeah.
It is. Our twins, they are 11, primary 5 now. Then in 2019, I got pregnant. So he's about Charlie's age.
Okay. Your Charlie's just turned 2.
Yeah, so he will turn 2 in September.
Okay.
Yeah, so I have this
That's a
11-year-old
massive age gap.
that I have to. Oh, impressive! Yes. So who I need to prepare them for, prepare them for PSLE, and then the other one prepare to get him to sing Wheels on the Bus.
And it's like you thought that era was over.
Yeah.
And you're back to like another 3 years of like, I don't know, Peppa Pig, or now it's Peppa Pig, but back then.
So yeah, in actual fact, that was a big hit, because I thought I was free to do my stuff, do my work or whatever, right? And then I got pulled back again.
Yeah.
Yeah, and to take that 2019, 2020, and then after that COVID, basically these few years, to like what you say, relook at everything and reconcile with everything again, and reshuffle things and priorities again. And okay, if I want to do work, what work should I be focusing on that's worth my time, of value, even if there's no big money coming in, but at the same time I get still to do stuff while looking after the small one. Yeah, that's essentially. And then we were talking about trauma earlier, and I didn't realize it, but then I had PTSD from this one.
Okay.
From this pregnancy. I didn't know it. So until I saw, I know, maybe Sylvia. So she put up a research study that she's doing on using a certain therapy technique to help people with birth traumas. So I know her. I kind of just raised my hand. I'm like, there's not going to be many people with birth trauma. Okay, I'll raise my hand. I'll help you with the research. And it turns out there are many.
Okay.
That was a real eye opener for me. And then, of course, I went through the 3-4 sessions of tapping technique, right?
Okay.
And it certainly helped.
It's great.
Lift me off that. We are kind of always on the forefront, like active women, and we're like, we'll get things done, we'll do it. And we think we have gone over it. Like, yeah, I'm okay now, right? But actually, we're not.
Yeah, there's I think we're just very good. I think I see myself as a what's that term where it's like it's like an achiever who just constantly powers through things.
Yeah. And possibly also we thrive on adrenaline, that we keep moving on.
Yes, that's correct. Right. And I just what's that term? It's a term for as a high where you're able to high functioning, yeah, you're just high functioning. So even if you're tired and stuff, you don't really, you're so good at being able to go through it or compress stuff that you're able to forget it. But now and again it kind of pops up out of nowhere and you're like, whoa, what was that? And you think, you might spiral out before you get back. But some people don't get back to it. But yeah, you're good at compressing or putting it because you're high functioning.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Spot on. Did it take for you to, you had been active before, and then of course you do a high level of exercises and activities and all that. Then so when motherhood came by, how did fitness look like or change?
What's funny with fitness, it's like your brain still remembers what you did as an athlete before, but your body doesn't really follow up. There's a disconnect, but there's a string still attached going yeah, I can do that. I remember after having kids, I was like foot raises, easy. I used to do weighted ones, you know what I mean? I'm like foot raises, anything that's hard, easy. But I couldn't even do it after birth. I was like, hang on. I was like, this is weird. After Ollie, I definitely took it slow. I knew that I had to realize on my own ego that I wasn't going to be able to do the things. I needed some time to rest. But I think because I had quite an easy birth, I bounced back. And I think because I was so fit before, and I was cycling up to about 5 months. Both births, I was working out, doing various types of HIIT until like even the day before they were born. Because I was given all clear to do that. I had a low risk pregnancy, and so I bounced back. I was just like mountain biking 3 months after. So as soon as I got the green from the doctors, I went, and I did have a physiotherapist after my first one, but I wanted to get back into the car for racing on my second one. And I, from the moment that it was okay after 8 weeks, I straight away went to go see a women's physiotherapist.
Right.
Because even though they say do Kegels and this is what it should feel like, you don't actually know which muscle you're using. And having a physiotherapist do internals, use ultra scans, seeing like the I guess the bounce rate of like all the muscles that are below internally, you don't actually know. And actually it's quite funny because a lot of women after birth suffer from incontinence. You don't know it. People just don't, because they just live with it. Not whether they're embarrassed, some they just live with it, like, you know, sneezing.
And most women don't talk about it, so we think everybody's fine.
Yeah. I mean, I think most majority, they just get on with life, you know what I mean? It's like whatever. But I mean, I knew as a person who does a lot of sport and wanted to be competitive again, I had to take it seriously. Because I remember I'd be on a trampoline full bladder and I'd just like leak, or I'll do something and sneeze and I'd leak. And it takes time. It does take time. And these are not something that most people would do or understand about trying to even, I mean, most people, everybody has separation of the abs, you know what I mean? And I wanted to be able to bring it back together. A little bit of vanity, but also a little bit because I wanted to be able to pick up things and go back to the gym again. And the second pregnancy, I made sure I did it all right. I had physiotherapists, I had I mean, the tools around me, and I took time out. I did so much mountain biking after my first kid. My back was destroyed, and I realized I needed to take it slowly for the second one. And I was a lot more forgiving on my body.
Right.
Yeah, which you have to be, and take time out. I mean, it's basically you need that 1 year after birth to chill out.
And work on your internals.
Yes.
Right. Work on strengthening the beams of your house.
Yeah.
Before you move on,
it's a big surgery. I mean, your birth may be easy or things like that, but actually it's a big thing that's just happened to your body. It's massive.
It's huge. Yeah. And yeah, I guess it's culture as well. Like, you know, our mothers pass it on, like, it's not like that. Everybody does. It's normal.
Well, my mom, she was like, my bladder dropped. Yeah, I kept peeing and blah blah blah. And I was like, oh, okay, that's all I remember about her.
She did. That's what she said.
You know, she's like, yeah, I had a bladder drop and blah blah. And I remember her stretch marks were hardcore, and I was just like, you know, because she doesn't play sport. She does now when she's 70, but like, I mean, she does a lot of walking and pool walking, but she's always working. So you don't have time for that. If you're like a busy mom who's working till like 1, 2 a.m. in the morning, you're not going to be thinking about, you know, like mental health, and, you know, you're trying to survive.
Yes.
You know, just on a daily basis. So I'm lucky that, and I know I'm very grateful that I have the ability and time to think about these things and have the education nowadays to correct that, because I don't want to pass on any trauma that I have to my son or daughter.
That's very true. Yeah. That's like one of the biggest learning point, right, for yourself. Yes.
How do you break the cycle and take things that your parents did as a lesson? And the biggest thing for me is that I tell myself is she did the best, or they did the best they could at that point in time. Fantastic parents, my parents. There's some things they could probably handle better, things they said in front of us or did or acted, but it is what it is. It is what it is. It happened. And the fact that I'm a parent now, it's my responsibility to change the future. That's what I believe, at least, to change how I treat my kids and how I behave in front of my kids. And it's to be seen as a lesson that I can be better at and change it how I want it to how the story plays out.
Yeah. I mean, after all these years of physical activity, high performance sports and all that, actually, when it comes down to the thing, what do you value most about physical activity for yourself?
It's the meditation part for me, because I don't think anything. It's like a zone out. I never really understood before the term meditation. I was like, I'm not a meditator. I'm like, because I'm always doing high impact. I find yoga hard. I find sitting there, and I didn't understand until I went away to this thing called Chosen Experiences, and basically the person, she was a yin yoga teacher, and the way she sold it to me was amazing. She basically said that see meditation as something as putting spaces in between your last thought and your next thought. It's not about blanking out thoughts. It's about, because our brain is constantly firing, and the synapses and the connections and stuff, we're constantly thinking or having words to ourselves. So she would make us listen to the sounds, just completely quiet out in Bali. I could hear birds and birds or water running, and she like hone in on the noise. And the moment you have a thought about it, going like, what's that? That's it. That's then change the next thing. And I realized I was changing every second, because I was like, oh, a bird. Oh, what's that? And I was saying things to myself in my head. And that was actually my brain firing off again. I just couldn't be quiet. I had no space in between what I thought and that noise. So it's learning to have no thought and just quietening the space in between, just making it bigger, you know what I mean? And cycling does that for me. Cycling, running, when I go out there, I don't think a lot. It's not space out or even a time out to myself. I have that space in between. I seem relaxed, focused, and I really enjoy myself.
Yeah, because then especially for cycling, be it on a mountain biking or on a race bike, I think because that level of focus needs to be there. I think there's really no space for you to consider other stuff or
that's right.
fire up on other things,
the mental health issues for me in connection. I mean, as humans, we're born to be outdoors. I mean, and I spend a considerable amount of time on technology. And I think even during this period of time, during the COVID and such, we're all cooped up in a house. Maybe we only have like a couple of windows. We can't see greenery. I think for me, at least, I believe we need to be out there in nature. And there's something very healing. I never used to understand all this like hippie bullshit going grounding. And I'm like, well, come on, guys, let's just get real here. Okay?
Until COVID.
But actually, there is a science behind it. There is. It just wasn't written to me in the way that I read it, you know. You know, some people banging some stuff and throwing flowers in the ocean didn't sell to me the way that image, you know, if you go type in like grounding, you're like, what does that mean? But actually, there is science behind it about having your feet going by nature, breathing in air, seeing it. It's very therapeutic. And actually, that's what I was doing. I was being back in nature again, which is very healing. And whereas a human, we should be.
Yeah. And it's very convenient because while you are doing an activity that you like, you are immersed in that environment as well at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. It's an all-rounded approach. And I think, that's why I love it. I'm not staring at a screen, you know, I'm outdoors, and that makes me the happiest.
So what would you say are your three top philosophies in raising kids? Okay, to be fair, you and Yui's like both together, but then what are the three top ones that you have for your kids?
Probably one is just let it go. Letting go of just like the inevitable. I mean, I know for me, if I'm going to leave a pen marker out and I should have put a lid back on, if I left my cup out there and I could have put it on higher ground, the tendency is my kid's going to pick it up and crawl and write all over. Even if they know, they're going to pick up the cup, and if it breaks and shatters or it spills everywhere on my couch, if I've given her something like, I don't know, and it spilled on the couch, I'm like, well, I could have prevented that. I should have known, but I went, and for whatever reason, I didn't do it. So I'd be like, I'm not going to get angry at that.
Right.
I think, just letting go of situations and not getting mad at the child. I mean, they're 3 years old. I mean, you know, number two is, I think, creating an environment where, the number one thing we said before our kids is that we wouldn't argue in front of our kids. We wouldn't argue and create that negative feeling around the house. We're both children, me and my husband, that grew up around a lot of fighting and arguing. for different reasons.
Mm-hmm.
And psychologically, we've both realized it's something we did not like and we did not enjoy. There was a lot of things straight away off the bat. We were like, we don't want that in the house. I don't want to see fighting. It creates it does destroy a little bit of a child's childhood by seeing, like, it's not about seeing or being real. It just there's a lot of psychological damage. There is, absolutely. And I definitely, took me a while to get over it, and I think my husband's had his fair share of seeing things that, you know, like he just didn't want to be home as a kid, as a teenager, which also in some kind of way mastered our superpowers for doing things. But kids can still get there without seeing that.
It's true. The vibes will be there.
Yeah, I want them to have a happy household. And if it is, we have to be adults and take it out somewhere else.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the second one. And the third one really is, man, sometimes you just wing it. It's quite surprising, actually. There's a lot of moms who reached out to me when I had 2 kids, trying to walk out of the house, or even when Ollie was 3 months old. I was, you know, when you're new mom, you're flustered, you bring a million things out. I bring nothing out now. I'm like, oh, didn't bring water bottle, diapers, wipers. I'm like, oh, well, you know, if I really have to, I'll just get it from 7-Eleven.
Watson's or something, right? Yeah.
I'm just like, it's Singapore, you know. But the first kid, people would reach out to me and be like, I don't understand. I haven't left the house for 2 years. I'm shocked. I had no idea. How are you going out of the house? How do you get the confidence to bring a 3-year-old out of the house? She said, I just can't do it. I've had people say that, and I'm like, I don't actually know what I'm doing. I have no idea, you know. But the kids are hardy. They're fine. They're fine. You know what I mean? Hungry, put it on the boob, diaper change, just a change. And I think people are kind enough to understand if something's going, like, whoa, lots of stuff happening. And people are kind enough, you know, to help out. Just sometimes you just got to wing it.
I know.
You really just have to wing it, and really just don't think. You just got to put yourself out there in that way. I mean, if you're afraid to do it, especially with the kids and stuff like that, I think to myself, man, can I have 2 kids at the zoo with me, bring them out and then put them back in and bring them to the car? It's just like, and it's like, you know what, why is that stopping me? I'm stopping myself. It's fine.
Yeah.
It
Sometimes
really
sometimes I know perhaps people are just overwhelmed by just simply the thought of it, right? These are the things I have to think about. I have to plan this and then take them out, and 2 car seats, and then after that, what if he doesn't want to walk and I need to carry him?
Oh my, it's just, you know what I mean? I mean, sometimes being simple in that way helps, just not having any thought. That's why you always think as dads, you think, oh, why do you not have any stress about over it? It's because they're like, oh, well, I'll just deal when it happens, whatever, you know.
Exactly, right? Just deal with it.
That's something I'm trying to, I do. I want to bring it to the zoo. If that's what I'm going to do, just put them in the park, they'll be fine. Yeah, there's water there. You know what I mean?
So then now, if that's the mom with like you, like that, you know, 2 kids under 2, she hasn't been active, or she hasn't been out of the house, like you mentioned, right? Then now she feels like, okay, I'm inspired by you, I want to do something. So what are the 3 top tips do you have for her? Well, to simply encourage her to get going.
Cool. Yes, like I said, that's just sometimes just not having any plan is the best. Not having any plan. I love impromptu, because doing something last minute, going like, oh, go to the park. I actually grab things and I just go.
Grab and go, right?
I just grab and go. And if I've forgotten everything, I'm like, well, whatever, you know. Probably, I don't know. I think sometimes even social media and things you read, sometimes get off it. Thinking that everybody is a great mom and stuff. Everybody thinks, how does she have a 6-pack? How has she lost weight? I spend so much time exercising, thinking about what I eat. There's a payoff. Even now, I'm a bit more different and going like, oh, it's fine. I'm not going to be so strict to myself. But like, it's your happiness versus looking at a body, and it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter, you know. That constant pressure on yourself. Get off the media sometimes, thinking that everybody's a great mom and it's a great life. Like, I had videos the other day of both my kids absolutely bawling at the same time, and I've just gone like, oh, well, you're both not having the toys, you know. And people want to see real things like that. You know, I think there's not a lot on there, but don't get too suckered into it with the media thing. It really is only barely a second of somebody's life, like
It is.
per day. So get off that. Don't believe that everyone. And number 3, say yes to help. If somebody says, if you let me have them for the weekend, a lot of parents or moms have separation anxiety. I think deal with it from the beginning. I knew that I was gonna want to be stuck to my kids, and I took a job straight away. 3 months after I had my first kid, I was flying, and I was away for 4 days, 7 days when they're newborn. Just because I needed to train myself from the beginning.
Yes.
To do that, because I knew that I loved my work and my job, and I wanted to carry on. Just I guess train yourself in that way, to be prepared for situations like that. It's tough, but I'm a lot more relaxed now. I'm trying to think like long term about it.
And people over time, I mean, experienced mom will realize that actually it doesn't affect the kid.
No, I actually spoke, I got help. I was talking to somebody who was 10 years older than me, and she said, to be honest, Claire, they're not going to notice until they're like 7 or 8. They won't even notice like really how much. It's up to you. You're the one that's sticky and needy as compared to this little baby. If you can find somebody who you can trust to look after, and they're fine, they're fed, the baby, the sleep, say yes to the help. Don't think, like my husband said, stop trying to be a superwoman. I don't have live-in helpers, but I get a part-time helper twice a week. And I caved in because I just had no time to myself. And I was just making so much noise about it. He was like, you can get help twice a week or something. And I was like, I can. And I don't want to spend my free time scrubbing toilets and what I used to do. And I'm like, oh, yeah.
Yes, I know. Okay, I want to respect the time. I just have one last question.
Sure.
This will be a very interesting one. Before I let you go, right? For the last one, just let your imagination run wild, right? Education is on top of every mother's mind, right? And we've talked about education right from the start, right, of this conversation. So, if you were the Minister of Education, there's no limit. You have all the resources. Is there anything you would change or implement in Singapore?
Implement into Singapore probably would be so much on the grade system, the grading system. I think when I first came to Singapore, probably the biggest shock that I had was that I was put in, what do they call it, the streaming, because I went to a local school when I for secondary school, express and stuff like this. The fact is, I think it's always crammed into our mind. What do you want to be? What do you want to study for? What do you want to? And when I mentioned earlier that job roles are changing, how do you know at 12 years old? How do you know at 16 years old what you want to do? How do you know? I didn't know until I was 30. I'm saying that, 30. I didn't know until I was able to work a multitude of jobs and realize what I was good at, what I would want to try harder at, and I had the mental capacity of mentors around me who wanted to teach me things. I didn't know. And I think having that scheme to set a childhood and putting tags at them at that age, it's tough. I mean, I remember thinking like, because I was able to study, but I also love sport. But I almost had to choose at that point in time what I wanted to do. And sometimes you need to stand up for yourself or stand up for your kid. I remember they told me I had to take, because I was in Cedar Girls School, right? So you had to take like pure science, or like
and combined science,
pure subjects. And I was the first person, and a few of us stood up and said, I don't want to do pure chemistry, I don't want to do pure science. I said, because it's not what I want to do. But we had to pick something. And I said, I'm not interested. And actually the school gave in. Because a few of us spoke up about it, and we took, I can't remember what it's called, the lower version. It's just regular science. We just took where it's
combined science, I think, or something like that.
Combined science. Yeah. Our school didn't offer it, but I stood up for myself. I said, I really don't want to take it. And it was in my best interest to speak up and do something about it. And I think we really do as a parent. I don't want to, I think there needs to be a certain amount of pressure, because I think I wouldn't have been able to achieve, because if you don't have amount of pressure, you're not going to achieve. And coming from a sports person, you need that. You need to be able to walk up and stand up to it and take that pressure, which is something you can train. You can train to take pressure. But having those tags so early on in life, we put it as a scorecard. And to be honest, my husband didn't go to university, and yet he is he's awesome at corporate. He's just out of box thinker. We come from two different backgrounds. He decided not to because he felt like it wouldn't work out for the way he thinks,
right?
His development of thought. And I've realized if you can get your child personality wise and hone that skill to go out there, even if he only had up to secondary school, but if he was somebody who went out to a company, knocked on their door and was insistent and persistent and could show value and stuff, I think that also works. And I know it's proven. My dad did it, my husband did it. So even though I'm somebody who could potentially be a helicopter mom, I also know, and the truth is that it doesn't need to be that way. I felt so much pressure studying here, so much pressure. And I was able to study, but my parents weren't there all the time, but they did their best to support me. And I kind of feel like it didn't need to be. I could have been happier as a child. But it was, not every person has that personality that I guess, or characteristics that I do, to want to not fail. Also because I had added pressure as a child, because I knew my parents had moved to this country. I was quite mature in that way, that if I failed, I'd have to leave the country.
I think you were mature enough at that age to think about that.
Right? There's a lot of things I understood at 12, but I wish I could have had a bit more of my childhood back, without eating the apple from the tree. So I think taking away those tags, and kids do develop at a different pace. They really do. And interest wise, and I think maturity did a lot better for me. I was very immature to want to decide what I wanted to do.
How could you be immature when you understood what you had to, or what circumstances you were in at 12 or 13?
I mean, right? I was mature because I understood at a young age what was happening to my life and what was going on. But I also had that where I wanted to play and I wanted to do things, and I had so much of that stress in my life, but I didn't know how to handle it. That's the immaturity. You don't have experience for me, and you don't have experience to deal with it. And you act up and you're emotional, you're a teenager, there's hormones. How can I ease the process so it makes it easier for my kids?
So in hindsight, this part that you're talking about, and then with the recent happenings, especially in school to the children, I mean, I do think that we need to relook at the system, and especially introduce a subject on understanding mental wellness for the kids. I don't think we have this aspect at all for our kids. No. I mean, they go to school, they're expected to do what the teachers and the standards that teachers issue or the parents tell them, and things like that. But they don't understand the other element of like, can I or can I not handle? If I can't, who can I, and how can I speak?
Well, it's a funny thing. I worked in a university in Australia when I was away for 3-4 years, and kids, when they had to pass up a paper, I think there's a flip side why the government is cautious about what they do, even with treatment, is that students would call in and say, I have a mental health issue. Can I get an extension? And they would just give them medication. They give them medication freely. Right. It's just so easy to get medication. Whereas in here, I was paying $600 to see somebody, plus not including my medication. It was just so expensive. I think the fine line between being able to give it and normalizing it when there's some issues and stuff, but at the same time finding the way where it's not like you haven't opened up a can of worms, but it started. And I'm also of the old school generation where it's like, I don't want my kids to be too soft. I know.
Yes, there's a fine line between, are you really stressed, or you're just not trained to handle pressure. There's this fine line.
And that's why I think sport's important.
Yes. Yes, very. I mean, for us, that's what we value for sure, right?
Yeah.
and then that's also one of my what I advocate as well. Keep keep the kids busy in sports, keep them busy moving around,
Yeah.
then they won't have all this stuff to,
Also, I guess it's the fine line of the technology. I definitely now have, I mean, my kids do watch TV and sometimes they have iPads and stuff, but I don't give them my phone. And I feel like if I mean, when Ollie goes, I want this, and now he's like, this is boring, this is annoying, can I have this? I want YouTube, even at 3.5. I don't want Netflix. I'm like, well, I knew it when we were kids. We had 4 channels and you had to come back at 4 p.m. to watch cartoons, so I mean, we also have to realize we can't be too soft on them, because we know that they're able to survive with that. And I did uni even without a laptop. My dad said, you have a computer at home, you do it at home. You don't need a laptop, because they couldn't afford one. And I was fine. I was absolutely fine. So I think it's important to teach them those kind of values. And I don't want to deny them, but I feel like they also have to learn to achieve that, and that just being outdoors, keeping them away from the tech too much, because it's so easy, and eyesight and things like that. Just
I know
lots of physical aspects.
And it's really like a one-way thing, right? Just watching.
I know, but to be fair, the programs on YouTube as compared to having Teletubbies and stuff. I mean, my son came back to me and he's like, I was like, oh, look at that digger. He's like, that's not a digger, that's a backhoe. And I was like, backhoe. Hang on. Oh my gosh, it's an excavator with a scoop. It's a real thing. I'm like, yes. Sorry. I was like, I know what a backhoe is now. So he's like, he's taught me. He said to my dad the other day, he was playing Lego. He was like, oh, this is an automatic plane. Like, it's an auto. It doesn't need somebody in it. I was like, did he? And he said, can you build me a drone? I was like, what? I'm like, he would have never learned. And luckily for me, my son loves these things, like kids programs on the outdoors, fish, bugs, and I get them involved. I allow them to pick up caterpillars, animals. I allow them to do it as long as it's safe, and I know it, like, catch the fish. I let them touch everything, because then at least that interests them in the choice of TV program.
Yeah, it's true. I know, same for the little one as well. Buses and trucks and all, and whatever he wants to watch is buses and trucks on the TV as well. It's crazy, right? Yeah. All right. I think this is a great place to land, so that you can go off for your meeting. I think that was a great 1 hour of sharing session. Thank you for being so candid with your experiences.
Oh, that's all good. I'm an open book.